John, let's talk about synthetic cannabis products.
Yep.
We've spoken about pills and powders and the confusion of not knowing what's in them. I mean, at least one of the nice things about, grass, marijuana, weed, skunk, is that you can look at it, smell it, and you've got a pretty good idea of what you've got. And now there's all these things.
Absolutely. It really is difficult to know where all this is going. I mean, these are essentially inert herbal material which has had synthetic compounds sprayed on it, and these compounds have an effect very much like cannabis. But there are hundreds of different ones. They vary in their potency, they vary in their duration of action, and some of them are 100 times more potent than THC in cannabis, for example.
And so this stuff gets sprayed on. Are the people who are spraying this stuff on, do they know as much about chemistry as you? Do you know what the right mix is and how much they should be putting in? And
I don't think anybody knows. I mean, these compounds haven't been researched as pharmaceuticals, so we've only got the sketchiest of information about them, and people tweak the molecules to get around the law all the time. So we've got one compound we know about called AKB48, and they've added a fluorine to it. Now, that's never been made before, so we don't have a clue what effects that has on its effects or potency.
But it still might tickle your CB1 receptor. People still might get the same sort of effect they're after.
Absolutely. And I believe the people make the molecules, they sell the stuff, and they get the feedback from the users. That's the only way they can possibly know what the effects are.
But when you spray this stuff on, does an equal amount of drug attach to each bit of herbal material? I mean, you're not going to get like end of the packet syndrome or something where the last little bit's got all the crystals falling off or something.
I think that's highly likely that the last joint you roll. I mean, a lot of these are 3 gram packets, which will be enough for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 joints, and you tap the last lot out onto the Rizzler for the last paper, and it's probably a little bit like the salt at the bottom of a crisp packet. That's where all the drug is.
And they're not cheap. I mean, at 30 quid for 3 grams, I mean, it's pretty much similar price in the UK, at least, for a gram of skunk.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've done some work through the Global Drug Survey, and overwhelmingly, people who have completed our survey have said they have a strong preference for herbal cannabis. It was 93%. And these sorts of products had much higher rates of unpleasant effects. It wasn't as nice as stone. And the thing that really struck us was that 2.5% of people who'd consumed these things said they'd sought emergency medical treatment in the last year. Mm. And they were turning up to hospital, not with the munchies because they wanted a pizza because they'd smoken a spliff. They were turning up with extreme agitation, sweating, headaches, panic, chest pain. And certainly quite a few of them, it was taking 3 or 4 days for them to recover.
I believe that.
And that just sounds to me that I don't know where the market is. But there's a lot of drugs here.
It's a very complex issue because, I mean, even skunk isn't like the cannabis that we used to have. I mean, the cultivated stuff now is largely THC. There's no cannabidiol in it, mm-hmm. So that doesn't have the mellow, chilled effect that mm-hmm. the really traditional cannabis had.
That's one of the things we're going to do in this year's Global Drug Survey, is find out what effect people want when they get stoned. Because I think there's an opportunity maybe to actually change the cannabis market back to something that's maybe lower THC, has got some CBD in, and then people maybe wouldn't get so anxious and paranoid and twitchy.
Perhaps the market for this is because people don't like the effects that pure THC has from skunk. And really difficult to know. And of course, the problem with this is they're not homogeneous. They change over time. As Black Mamba, for example, we've seen in lots of different forms as the law changes.
The brand names just changed. I mean, today is the 28th of February 2013, and my understanding is a couple of days ago, a whole new raft of synthetic cannabinoids, has just been banned in the UK.
Absolutely. And the response to that will be people will make new compounds that aren't controlled by the legislation, which will get added to these products. So the brand name will stay the same probably, but they'll have different chemicals, which will have a different half-life, a different onset of action, a different duration of action.
So because I had Snoop last week and I quite liked Snoop, when I go back next week and I buy some Snoop and I roll a spliff, Snoop may have changed.
Might well have done.
Right. Thanks, John.